Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this version 1 webinar about Oracle preparation for Oracle Audit. So this session is orientated towards people around Oracle audits. Of course, the steps that are involved within an Oracle audit are pretty similar to most vendors. The reason I'm giving an Oracle focus on it is, one, because Oracle audit season is upon us. Lots of audit letters are going out from Oracle at the moment, and we're seeing customers getting notification of audits at the moment. And two, a lot of people like to focus on Oracle because of their audit policies and the way they approach audits. So they're a good sort of case study to use for this sort of discussion. So just a very quick introduction. Version 1, hopefully you all know about the company. In particular, my team, originally Oracle license focused. We've broadened out into other vendors now. We've been doing Oracle licensing since about 2001, 2002, and we've got a large team covering all bases of Oracle licensing, which is necessary to be able to do Oracle licensing properly. A key point that we have is that we are independent. We work to get the best answers for our customers. And something else that we also do, which people aren't quite as familiar with, is help people with software asset management and helping people for the whole life cycle of developing and delivering software asset management for enterprise software. Very quick introduction about myself. I'm a principal license consultant here at version 1. I have been doing Oracle licensing for about 16 years. My background is as a DBA, so I understand Oracle software very well. But like I say, I've been looking after Oracle licensing for quite a long time. So I have seen a lot of different scenarios as we've helped customers over the years. So the good news about today is I don't have a huge number of slides. In fact, I've only got one, and that slide will break down the 10 steps that we think are important for people to understand when they're preparing for a vendor audit. Each one of these, of course, is a subject in its own right, so I will be whizzing through these fairly quickly and covering the sort of salient points. But like I say, there's plenty more discussion that can be had for each one of those. And as I mentioned earlier, there will be an Oracle bias to these slides. So the first step is, if you are under audit, is understanding why. In our experience, audits can be notified to customers for various reasons. Sometimes it can be the classic audit letter you get from Oracle. Sometimes it can be a strategic review, which is either strategic for your own purposes, which you're involving the vendor for, or they're helping you understand your position before you make a large change to your infrastructure or your estate or your business. Same goes for proactive as well. We don't see too much of this happening with Oracle, but Oracle are keen for people to work with them and help customers understand their license position. We've not seen a lot of uptake on that one. And of course, the suspected compliance issue is probably the one that we see most of, although it's not overtly demonstrated to be a compliance issue when you get the letter. So the reason this step is important is that we find that depending on how formal the audit is, it can determine how seriously people take such a notification and such a process. So in effect, the outcome is generally always the same. There's either a compliant position and potentially some savings can be made, or there's a non-compliant position and you find yourself in a position where you have to negotiate with the vendor to remediate that. And generally, in our experience, that remediation will be carried out in a way which is not always relevant to the way that you were originally notified of the audit. So you may receive a fairly informal fill in this spreadsheet, or we're going to come and have a look at your estate, not very formal sort of notification, but the intensity of the remediation and dealing with any non-compliance can change very, very quickly towards the end if non-compliance is found and if, let's say, Oracle's year-end is approaching. So having that understanding and making sure people in your organization are aware of it is very important. Moving on to the next step, timing. This is important for a number of reasons. One is how much time do you have to undertake this audit? Now, that may be because you need to do some internal review first, but it also has to consider the notification that is in the letter. Now, a lot of Oracle letters these days will include a time period, say giving you 7 days to respond. In reality, what you need to look at is what's in your contract. Oracle standard contracts have either 35 or 45-day notice period, and that's notification of audit. That's not notification of necessarily delivering anything for the audit. That's just for you to be able to respond and initiate the audit process with Oracle. These sorts of audits, if any of you have been through them, can be very large and very, very complex. I think a lot of people underestimate how long such a process can take. An example I regularly give to people is that we have seen an audit of about 10 servers take 18 months. There's various political reasons and technical reasons that sort of thing can happen. And sort of tying in with that is if your estate is going through large changes, and let's say you're moving between data centers, then undergoing an audit at that particular time may be not representative of your general usage, and therefore it may not be a good time to perform the audit. Now, obviously, there's certain techniques and discussions you can have to try and change the audit time frame and when it starts, or to defer it. So various awareness needs to be taken into consideration for that. Moving on to the next point, expected outcomes. Now, hopefully you'll be expecting to come out of such an audit in a compliant position. However, we do see some people who sort of get the letter and turn around and their first response is, well, we know we're not compliant. Of course, that's not something we would recommend anyone be in that sort of position. It's generally because people have avoided going through the process and the due diligence to make sure they audit themselves and they are in a compliant position. And so you've got to be aware that the risk mitigation that's involved to understand what that outcome is going to be is absolutely critical as one of these steps. Hopefully people will come out with a compliant position, but sometimes people have a hunch that, oh yeah, well, that position or that software has been deployed in such a way for such a long time that we should have done something about it. There may be an expectation you have some cost savings out of such an audit, which will be a fantastic result if you do. Or you may be using it for the purposes of reassurance to sort of underpin your own processes and to verify your own some systems and controls you have in place. And the other expected outcome is sometimes these audits can be used as a prerequisite for major programs, so that you can actually undertake a major program of work, moving to a new platform, moving to a new data center, and until you know what your position is, you don't know that you're going to have enough license to go ahead with such a big project. Moving on to the next step, resources. This is where it gets a bit more nitty-gritty, and again where people perhaps underestimate the amount of effort that an audit can take. So a really big one that we're really keen on as an organization that a lot of people are starting to take more seriously these days is entitlement. What ordering documents can you lay your hands on? It never ceases to amaze me when people spend hundreds of thousands, millions of pounds on software and then they misfile, don't file at all their ordering documents away, and 5 years down the line someone comes to find them and to understand what their contractual obligations are and they're not available. So that's a really important one. Gathering that entitlement information up front is a really critical thing to do. Equally, the other part, of course, is what your usage is. How well do you know your estate? How quickly can you get your hands on the information that's necessary to participate in the audit. And I think this is something that's really underestimated by people, is getting hold of that data. For Oracle, of course, you've got to declare your software. I'm talking about a database here, for example, and therefore, in order to declare your software to Oracle, you need to know where it is. So you need to know who can tell you how many databases you've got out there, how many database servers you've got, where are they, who can access them, etc., etc. So that's a major point there as well. Having the skills and knowledge available to pull these pieces of information together is important. So if you have multiple DBA teams, each one which are very siloed or running different parts of the business, then coordinating those resources to get the necessary information can be quite a challenge as well. And this is an interesting point which also relates to the initial audit notification that you get, is what's the scope of the audit, what products does it include, which of your business units does it include, and also a critical, which products does it include as well. That can very much shape the way that the audit proceeds. It can also dictate the complexity of the audit, and can also drive behaviors from the vendor. So if the audit's being undertaken by someone who's interested in technology products rather than application products, they may not come and audit the application products, for example. One other step which is very, very important is getting sponsorship. Again, it comes back to taking audits seriously. Ultimately, who will gain or benefit from the results, whose reputations are on the line. Maybe that's you as a representative of your company's SAM team, or someone who's managing software within your organization. Obviously, if a major non-compliance is found, then potentially there can be big implications both for people managing software and also people further up the organization. So it's important to get stakeholders clearly identified, get them brought into the process, and make sure they understand what's happening throughout. And also, they can get you resources and buy-in and wave big sticks as necessary to get the necessary information you need in order to complete the audit in a timely fashion. Strategy is about running the project. How will you run the project? We recommend that there's a dedicated project manager, a single point of contact between you and the vendor, and making sure that you uphold your side of the obligation back to the vendor in collating information, chasing information, making accurate declarations, etc., etc. So it's really important to make sure that it's not just plonked on the table of the DBA team lead or the service manager for Oracle database. It needs a proper buy-in, and it needs proper project management to run this sort of project properly. And again, that comes down to, can you get the right people involved? So there may have been someone who was involved in the previous audit who has a wealth of knowledge, or someone who was involved in the purchase of a given license, or who may have had some email exchanges with Oracle. Getting access to that can make a huge difference to the audit and the outcome. And that helps you get consistent results. One thing that we do see is every time you go through an audit, you may get different results with the same data set. Bizarre though that sounds, having that consistency over multiple audits and having a view of your estate over time is really, really important to the final outcome of your audit. Forward view is taking into consideration what's happening within your organization at the time of an audit, and that does have a bearing if you've got any major projects or planned changes. Again, that can then drive the behavior from the vendor. So the obvious example here is cloud. If you're moving to cloud, then the vendor will more than likely at the moment have an incentive to sell you more cloud, which could work to your benefit. It depends on what your cloud strategy is and how that fits into your forward view and your strategy. And equally, if you know you're about to buy some products, then having those understood, which products you want, how many you want, what sort of environment they're going in, is really important to playing into the negotiation should you get to that stage with the vendor. and that also goes for product usage. So if there's a legacy application that you're mothballing and that you want to migrate away from, then obviously there's considerations with that around the audit. What you don't want to end up doing is paying hundreds of thousands of pounds of non-compliance for a product that you've actually mothballed and you're not deploying anyone else on, or you're not getting any more business value out of, but you still need to have a license for as well. So these are sort of considerations which are company-wide that you need to consider. Negotiation strategy, I've mentioned this one already about timing. That can be a really big advantage for you, especially if you're coming up to Oracle's year end. It can also add unnecessary pressure, and therefore you've got to take that into consideration during such a process. That will also drive behaviors from the vendor as well, and try and get them to exert pressure on you, which may force you into a particular position. Oracle have been using their 30-day compliance resolution obligation more and more these days when we see them pressing non-compliance bills to people. So that sort of thing really needs to be taken into consideration as well. That ties very well with the vendor interest. Like I say, Oracle Cloud at the moment is something that's very big, and Oracle are keen for people to adopt that, and that will form part of their side of the strategy, and therefore you should expect that and work around that and work with that where you can. And that also applies to the negotiation variables as well. So that could be sign-off levels, it could be ability to perform a transaction within a certain amount of time. All these are cards that you hold which are useful in any such negotiation with a vendor, so should you get to that stage. Related to this previous step is the relationship. How is the overall relationship with the vendor anyway? Do they understand you well? How well do you understand them? What are their behaviors like in this sort of position? And do you have a good long-term relationship with them so they understand your business requirements? And to that end, how will you get your goals, both goals, met? Because this should be a two-way thing. It should be something that you benefit out of and the vendor benefits out of as well, should there be any deal or transaction, or indeed any savings for you. A vendor should see savings for you as a good thing. They may not immediately see it like that, but if that enables you to do other things with your business and maybe buy more software in the future, then that should be in their interest. And again, how are communications managed? So this is reiterating the point that we recommend a single point of contact at all times. We know that a lot of vendors have multiple people crawling over companies during audits, sometimes trying to gather information. And that's obviously the sort of thing which can spread information which is not necessarily relevant to the audit, or that shouldn't be fed back to the vendor at all. And this is a really important one. Again, we see a lot of people simply accepting the findings of a vendor's audit. It's a tricky one, because a lot of people think, well, the audit is the audit and the result is the result, and that's it. We may not be happy about it, but what can we do about it? We actually find that under scrutiny, a lot of audit findings can be challenged. And there's also different metrics and models that can be used to come up with a more suitable mechanism for you to license your products. And that may be applying your current licensing or future licensing to your estate. And the final one, again, I think this is absolutely critical, and at the end of an audit we generally see a lot of people sort of saying, well, that was stressful, didn't like that, but it's done now, we've done whatever we've done, we've moved on. A lot of people forget about it and move on and move roles, etc., etc. Prevention and capturing the findings of an audit, I think, are absolutely critical to you managing it next time it happens, and to also increase the knowledge of what happened in the audit during the process. They are long and stressful type of situations. Not many people enjoy them. We've been through enough of them to find them enjoyable, but we're slightly odd in that way. But capturing those findings, making sure they're accessible by future people in the company is really, really important, especially if there's been any bespoke agreements, email exchanges. That sort of thing can be really, really useful for you to play back in future audits and future relationship with the audit with the vendor. And also, that once you have that audit, you also have what we would hope to be a good view of your position, whatever that may be. At that point, you have a known position that you can then manage, and you can then take forward, and you can use as the basis of your SAM process. And that's a really powerful thing to have. Again, people just generally get the final report, mumble about it, put it away, and don't look at it again. Really, what that should be turned into is the basis of your position, and it should be managed from there onwards. And that helps you safeguard against the future. So just the key ones I'd like to point out or reiterate on this on these steps are as follows. Audits are large and complex. Again, that can be dictated by the scope, but vendors generally like to go for the big, widely deployed, massively proliferated products, and therefore they can be very, very hard to understand, especially if it is something like Oracle database, which everyone loves deploying, very easy to clone, very easy to end up with databases everywhere. So keeping control of that and managing it is absolutely critical. Entitlement data sources, as I mentioned before, keep hold of your contracts, make sure they're all filed away, make sure you have access to usage data, make sure you know how that relates to your contracts. Having skills and knowledge available to understand what all these bits of information mean, and hopefully manage those in a way that relates directly to your licensing will be good. Understanding the vendor is really important to knowing how the audit proceeds, how the relationship proceeds, and how any findings of an audit will also proceed as well. Accepting or challenging findings, very, very important. Definitely worth having experts like ourselves involved should you get some findings you don't agree with. And also finally, safeguarding against the future. And making sure that you use the audit as a basis for your future software asset management, I think, is very, very important. So that pretty much covers the 10 steps. As I said earlier, a bit of a whistle-stop tour of those. These slides will be available after this session,